So I'm in Mark's room because he's watching telly, and it's just before 10 p.m. on Saturday. And there's something I read this morning, just briefly saw it written somewhere. I think it might have been in the Memoirs group, and it was something about abortion, and how if men had to carry babies, how the whole debate would be completely different. And it got me thinking to things that I have thought about before, and things that you read about and things that you hear about, if men had periods, that all of the things that women have to put up with, those, painful periods, if men had periods, the whole thing and health around periods would be really different. The whole, there would probably be decent pain relief, or even a way to get around it completely until you needed to have them. What else? If you have mammograms, if men had to have their balls squashed in the same machine that we have our breasts squashed in for a mammogram, there'd be a different way of doing mammograms. If men had to have an internal exam to check their cervix with the big things, that there'd be a different way. And it's a man's world, isn't it? We live in a man's world, and we're facing, the US are facing this whole control over women's bodies, and it's absolutely disgusting. And it really would be really different, very different, if men had to carry babies, if men would get pregnant as the consequences of rape. The whole balance is so wrong. I've also been thinking about how many men are now, yet again, wondering when there's going to be a knock at their door. How many celebrities are wondering when there's going to be a knock at their door? We've got Hugh Edwards, who was recently found guilty of having explicit pornography, child sexual images on his computer, and I really don't think his sentence was enough. I think the youngest on there was about 7 years old, and that child would have been through hell just to give him pleasure, just for him to sit and watch. It's disgusting. There's a whole mass of stuff coming up now about Al Fayed, who was the owner of Harrods, and scores of sexual abuse over many, many years, and people are still now coming forward. Now it's come up and surfaced a little bit like Weinstein, when people the report starts to come out, and people start to see that they're not alone. They come forward, and I think that back with is it Weinstein, there was the Me Too thing, and there was a lot of people that said, that's it, getting on the bandwagon. But so many women who've been sexually abused are absolutely terrified of coming forward. They're so vulnerable. The type of people, or no, I'm not going to say that, but it's not uncommon for the women that get sexually abused to be already vulnerable, which makes them vulnerable to being abused and exploited. So they're not going to be people like me that want to kick ass. They are going to be vulnerable people. So it takes a lot for them to come forward, but it seems that there's a lot now coming forward about Al Fayed. Jay Blades was in the magistrates' court recently because he's been accused of coercion, and I can't remember the other word, but by his former wife of coercive behaviour. It's like these people that spend, we spend a lot of time with them in our lives on our television screen, enjoying their company, and then discover they're not who we thought they were. It's horrible. It's really horrible. But I do wonder how many celebrity men there are out there who have this image that people, idolize them. How many of them are going to get a knock at the door? I don't think kids idolized Jimmy Savile. I don't think adults did. I can't remember how I felt about him. I can't remember how I felt about him. He was the most disgusting man. But yeah, it's horrible, and I'm not sure what else I want to say about it. But I do think that we do live in a very paternalistic world, even now, even in Britain, and even in France, actually worse than the UK. It's quite a paternalistic country. Is that the right word? So it's still, it's not as equal as women might be in the UK, I don't think. I don't know whether that's changing. I keep having other thoughts come into my head, and then I say something else, and then off they go. I know. I was thinking about Kamala Harris, who, that's it. I read that today on the Memoirs site about, God, I can't remember. It was about, people accusing women of sleeping their way to the top. And this doesn't sound connected, but Kamala is a woman of colour, and I've just watched the final of the Great British Bake Off 2015, and I knew who won, remembered who won, but I've enjoyed watching it again. And Nadia was the winner, an English British Indian woman, or she might not be, it might be Pakistani, but she's British, but from an Indian culture. And I can remember the anger around when she won. We want a British person to win, and it's like, she was British, is British, but she's coloured. She's a woman of colour. But so there was a lot of anger around, and the horrible newspaper in the UK called the Daily Mail that somebody suggested I looked at the other day, and I said over my dead body, wouldn't even print it on the front page. There was a small paragraph about it inside, because they just couldn't bear the idea that a woman of colour and a woman with Indian heritage could win the Great British Bake Off. But Britain is so multicultural, and has been for thousands of years, that all this fuss about you're not like me, and you don't look like me, and you're a Muslim, or you're a Sikh, or you're a whatever, is absolutely ridiculous, because we're all the same. I think I've gone off on a tangent, but it's I warned Mark before I made this. I said I'm going to go in and make a video about men, and he went, "Oh, what men?" I went, "Well, not you, obviously, because he isn't like that. He isn't like some of these men that I'm talking about." But yeah, I was sort of thinking, if men had to carry babies, if the consequences of rape for men were that they could get pregnant, if they had to have cervical smears, if they had to have periods, if they had to go through menopause, if they had to suffer with endometriosis, if they had to have their balls checked, and have a ballogram in the way we have our mammograms, all of that all of that would be a very different kettle of fish, and science would have created and made things more less painful, more comfortable, or find other ways to do it. Okay, I think I've said what I want to say. I don't think I've made much sense. I've not really been having, what's that bit of hair? I'm having a bit of problems with my hair. I've not been having a very good day. It started off okay, and then it went, and I don't know why. It's a bit better now, but I don't know what happened. There was a sudden change in the weather, and I don't know whether it was just that. 1 minute I was sitting out reading, and then the next minute it was really overcast, and then it started to drizzle, and we've got storms forecast, and we've got wet weather forecast for the next few days. I don't know whether it was that, but it's just my mood suddenly was going down. It's back up now. It made me think of something else. It was still reading, both of us still reading Still Life. I'm quite way ahead of Mark now. And it was recommended by our friend Hugh. And we were sitting out in the garden reading yesterday, and I said to Mark, I'm enjoying it so much, I can imagine going back and starting again from the beginning immediately. And then I remembered and went back to the email that Hugh had sent, and he did the same. He enjoyed it so much that he started again from the beginning after he'd finished. I think I'll do that, because it was it's quite a different style, and I think actually going back and beginning again will give much more depth to it, where once I was struggling to understand what was going on or make sense of it. So I think it will add depth. It's a lovely, lovely story. I haven't read a book as good as that I've enjoyed as much as that for a long time. I think it's very different to Pillars of the Earth, but that also was an incredibly enjoyable book. And there's a book that my friend Jill recommended to me that I read, and I can't remember the name of it now. And that also took a while to get used to. I can't remember the name of it. But the author of the book we're reading, Still Life, is the author of the book called When God Was a Rabbit. And I've read that several years ago, and I can't remember how it goes. So my daughter Jo has finally, over 20 minutes away from me, finally got fibre. And that's it. I've had a discussion with Mark about Elon Musk. She's finally got fibre, and she sent me her speed test, and it was 600 up and 600 down. It was like, oh my God. I don't know when we'll get offered fibre here, but what I do know is I will kick Starlinks into touch once I can get fibre. And I did talk to Mark about my paranoia about he's got so much power, and we've got an antennae that he is connected to his satellites. What if he, decided to turn against us, not us personally, but people that he could target? This was connected to the pagers and the walkie-talkies. And I talked it through with Mark because I felt quite worried about it. And he went, but why would he target the people that he's taking money from? That doesn't make sense that he would target his customers. And I'm willing to go along with that for now. So, but as soon as I can get fibre, I'll get rid of Starlinks, because I do feel and have felt conflicted about it. Right, so I said more than I intended to, and I imagine because I've talked about sexual abuse, I think I will put a trigger warning in the title, and this won't get monetized, but that doesn't really bother me. There's a couple of things I've got up recently that haven't been monetized. There's been a copyright strike, and it's not really something I worry about. I'm not relying on the income from my small YouTube channel. So Okay. Thanks for watching.